Hello YouTube, welcome back to another video. This is about West Africa, the Caribbean, and Black America. And this is Africa Before the Myths Part 3. Some key themes are fracture, not erasure. So when Africans were taken across the Atlantic, history didn't end, it fractured. Languages were broken, families were separated, cultures were forced to change. But African identity didn't disappear. It adapted. It survived. And understanding how it survived matters more than any myth about where it came from. The transatlantic slave trade lasted roughly from the 1500s to the 1800s and involved multiple regions of Africa, not one single group. Before displacement, West Africa was not a single culture or identity. It was home to many peoples: Yoruba, Akan, Igbo, Mandé, Wolof, Kongo, and others. These societies have their own languages, governance systems, trade networks, and spiritual beliefs. There was no unified African identity waiting to be carried across the Atlantic. What existed were many identities later forced into one system under slavery. This matters because people weren't taken from a cultural blank slate. They were taken from functioning societies. The kingdom of Wagadu existed as early as the 8th century, long before European contact with West Africa. The Atlantic slave trade didn't move people randomly. Different regions of Africa were connected to different parts of the Americas. West Central Africans were sent largely to Brazil. Many Akan and Yoruba speakers were sent to the Caribbean. North America received a more mixed population over time. This shaped culture, it shaped language retention, it shaped religion, music, and family structure. Where you landed mattered just as much as where you came from. Brazil received the largest number of enslaved Africans, accounting for around 40% of the total transatlantic slave trade. In most slave societies, African languages were discouraged or banned. Traditional religion were suppressed. Names were taken. So culture survived where it could hide, in rhythm, in oral storytelling, in call and response patterns, in foodways. This wasn't culture purity. It was adaptation under pressure. Africans' culture survived without being allowed to remember itself openly. Call and response patterns found in Black American music trace back to West and Central African music traditions documented by ethnomusicologists. In the Caribbean, enslaved Africans often outnumbered Europeans. This made it harder to completely suppress African languages, religions, and customs. In places like Haiti, Jamaica, and Trinidad, African culture continuity remained more visible. In the United States, the system worked differently. Enslaved people were deliberately mixed. Families were broken repeatedly. Language retention was aggressively disrupted. This result wasn't loss, it was deeper transformation. These differences aren't about superiority, they're about systems. In St. Domingo, enslaved Africans made up over 85 to 90% of the population before the Haitian Revolution. Because of this fragmentation, many people today feel disconnected from their past. That gap creates space for simplified stories, chosen identities, bloodline myths, internet narratives that promise instant belonging. But history doesn't work that way. Identity isn't restored through fantasy, it's rebuilt through understanding. Modern racial categories were largely developed during European colonial expansion, not in the ancient world. Real connection between Black Americans, Caribbeans, and Africans doesn't come from pretending we're the same. It comes from understanding why we're different. Africans today are shaped by colonial borders and modern nation states. Caribbeans are shaped by plantation societies and stronger cultural continuity. Black Americans are shaped by extreme cultural rupture and forced rebuilding. Connection doesn't require shared labels. It requires respect, study, cultural exchange without superiority or shame. meeting each other where we actually are, not where myths say we should be. Most African national borders were drawn during the Berlin Conference of 1884 through 1885, not by Africans themselves. African identity doesn't need ancient titles to be valid. It lives in survival, in adaptation, in continuity through change. History explains us better than myth ever could. So African identity didn't disappear. It transformed. This is Africa Before the Myths, Part 4 coming soon.